What you get, trying to fucking ruin a guy's livelihood by using the Me Too movement?
Because they were trying to take over the movie.
Yeah.
They were trying to take over the movie and the whole franchise. He owned the franchise.
They're fucked.
The whole thing's crazy.
They're fucked.
And he's suing the New York Times.
Have you ever seen a Hollywood fallout so chaotic that it feels more like a public brawl than a carefully scripted drama? That's exactly what's unfolding right now, with Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, and Ryan Reynolds at the center of a swirling storm. The twist? Joe Rogan has stepped into the fray, calling out what he sees as deceptive tactics and turning an already scandalous situation into a full-blown industry earthquake. If you've only caught whispers of what's going on, buckle up, because this story is more than just another tabloid rumor. It's a look into how power, fame, and the misuse of serious social movements can collide on a Hollywood set, exposing a side of show business that's rarely discussed so openly. Everything came to a head when Joe Rogan, yes, the outspoken podcaster, MMA commentator, and cultural lightning rod, aligned himself with Justin Baldoni. Rogan doesn't step into these controversies lightly. His platform is so big that any opinion he shares instantly reverberates across countless Twitter feeds, podcasts, and Reddit threads. The fact that he's backing Baldoni against A-list darlings Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds is not just surprising, it's paradigm shifting. In a business where big names often skate by on status alone, Rogan's candor throws a bright spotlight on allegations that might have been swept under the rug just a few years ago.
And then it's like, all right,
Dude,
enough.
he posted the receipts.
Oh,
He's like,
the
oh,
receipts are
remember our
crazy.
text exchange? Bah, bah,
How about she
bah,
told
bah.
him to, to come into the dressing room while she was breastfeeding?
Before we delve into Rogan's no-holds-barred commentary, let's rewind and figure out how these big players even collided in the first place. Justin Baldoni, who rose to fame through acting and directing, got involved with an adaptation of the popular novel It Ends With Us. Initially, it seemed like a dream setup. Baldoni was slated to direct, and Blake Lively was cast to star. Ryan Reynolds hovered around the project's periphery, never officially attached in any starring role, but present enough to make Hollywood watchers speculate he might turn up in some behind-the-scenes capacity. For a while, excitement buzzed around the adaptation. Fans were eager to see how Lively would interpret the novel's intense emotional arcs, and Baldoni had been praised for his heartfelt approach to storytelling. Suddenly, everything took a bizarre detour. Rumors emerged that Lively wasn't just acting in the film, she was essentially taking it over. Whispers floated around that people were being fired left and right at her behest, or replaced with professionals she personally preferred. Even more startling were suggestions that Baldoni, ostensibly the director, was being barred from viewing his own footage. Was that even possible? How does a director lose access to the material he's supposed to be shaping? Each rumor sharpened the sense that something very unorthodox was happening on set, and that the original power structure was being flipped upside down. Then came the allegations.
And it's absolutely absurd, and it's not going to work.
Lively had filed claims indicating Baldoni harassed her on set, painting him as some sort of intrusive aggressor. Instantly, the media picked up on the theme. Hollywood has become increasingly watchful about harassment claims, so it wasn't surprising that many outlets took Lively's side right out of the gate. Why wouldn't they? A beloved actress said she felt victimized, and the industry typically rallies around that sort of disclosure. Yet hints of contradiction started seeping through the official narrative. The biggest red flag was when texts surfaced suggesting that Lively herself had invited Baldoni to her trailer at times she later framed as boundary crossing. If those messages were real, it meant the story was far more complicated than it first appeared. It's at this point Joe Rogan decided he'd heard enough. On his podcast, he blasted the entire situation, zeroing in on Lively and Reynolds with a kind of fearless bluntness that only Rogan can deliver. He wasn't meandering or playing devil's advocate. He was declaring unequivocally that Justin Baldoni was the one being railroaded, and that Lively and Reynolds were weaponizing the Me Too movement for control. According to Rogan, the accusations weren't about protecting women or creating safer sets.
It's a bunch of fabrication and lies, and then you see the control that she took over the movie, and I just don't see how any of these reporters are coming to that conclusion other than they are just trying to meet some type of agenda.
He alleged it was about hijacking a production, perhaps to lock down creative power or to manipulate the direction of the film. Rogan's words carried a weight that can't be ignored. He has millions of followers across multiple platforms, making him one of the loudest voices in contemporary media. When he takes a side, his reach ensures that side gets heard, especially by demographics who might not normally pay attention to celebrity intrigue. It's easy to dismiss rumors in tabloids, but it's far harder to shrug off a conversation on the Joe Rogan Experience, a show that's as mainstream as it is subversive. The moment Rogan raised his eyebrows at Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, You could almost sense the internet pivot. People who had automatically believed Lively's original claims began hearing about the contradictory evidence. They watched Rogan compare Baldoni's predicament to Johnny Depp's, citing the fiasco with Amber Heard, where the public narrative turned 180 degrees. Once more evidence surfaced. To be clear, Rogan wasn't denying the legitimacy of real survivors or any genuine Me Too stories. He was pointing out the dangers of reflexively accepting every accusation at face value, especially when so-called receipts exist to undermine the allegations. The existence of text messages, voice notes, and behind-the-scenes footage suggests that Baldoni might have proof that completely contradicts Lively's version of events. If any part of Lively's claims unravel, it ignites a moral and legal firestorm. A woman in a position of power using serious social issues to allegedly smear a colleague in order to maintain control over a multi-million-dollar project. From there, the drama.
Blake Lively thing?
Bro, Blake Lively, talk about ruin your reputation, and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, they fucked up. Ryan's trying to get out of it now. He's trying to get out of the lawsuit. And they're like, you are a key part of this.
This is what you get, though. This is what you get. You're trying to fucking ruin a guy's livelihood.
Spread outward like a wildfire. Fans of Ryan Reynolds, those who adored him in Deadpool, praised his comedic timing, and bought into his Mint Mobile and aviation gin ventures, found themselves questioning whether he'd participated in a campaign to sabotage Baldoni. This suspicion only intensified when news surfaced that Reynolds was attempting to extricate himself from a $400 million lawsuit that Baldoni slapped on Lively, Reynolds, and their publicist Leslie Sloan. Why try to slip out if you have nothing to hide? That single question spurred countless online debates. Some argued that Reynolds merely wanted to avoid the headache of litigation. Others felt it was the move of someone terrified that truth might come to light. The lawsuit goes beyond personal disputes. Baldoni is also suing the New York Times for allegedly slanted coverage that favored Lively's perspective. Even the so-called paper of record isn't immune to accusations that it championed a narrative without fully investigating both sides. It's not the first time a major outlet has been criticized for running a story that supports the more famous or publicly beloved figure. But the stakes here are colossal. $400 million in claimed damages is more than enough to send waves through the industry, forcing studios and journalists alike to question how they handle allegations. If the courts find that Baldoni was defamed or extorted, it sets a precedent that fame does not guarantee immunity, and that dragging someone's name through the mud can backfire in a spectacular way. That's precisely why some commentators call this the next Johnny Depp-Amber Heard moment. The parallels are striking. A male figure in Hollywood is accused of wrongdoing.
Most of you do know, but if you don't, I was blocked by Ryan Reynolds. Yes. So Joe Rogan just entered the chat, and he is Team Justin Baldoni.
The media mostly sides with the accuser, especially because she's well-known and charismatic. But then receipts pop up. Texts, recordings, contradictory stories that suggest the narrative might not be as straightforward as people thought. In the Depp case, the tide turned after the release of audio tapes and evidence that challenged Heard's claims. Now, many are seeing Baldoni as the new underdog who might just come out on top provided he can prove his story. And if Joe Rogan's confidence is any measure, the proof exists in spades. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, fans and critics alike scrutinize the power dynamics at play. Lively supposedly demanded a production credit. She was listed as a producer, under the Producers Guild of America guidelines. If she was truly calling the shots, that places her more in the role of an employer than an employee. Could a person with that much clout on a set reasonably claim they were being harassed in a powerless capacity? The entire premise becomes murky when you realize she allegedly replaced a composer without consulting Baldoni, locked the director out of important footage, and even had direct lines to bigger names in the industry who could shape the final cut. It starts to look less like a typical actress facing workplace challenges, and more like an orchestrated power grab that used the cover of harassment claims to push the real director aside.
That's what it takes.
That's what it takes.
It's like Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
He's like, all right,
Yeah.
he did for the boys.
Exactly. You got to do it.
You need real motherfuckers to be like, nah, man, I ain't going out like this.
Yeah, especially a guy like that. It was like known as being like this really sweet, nice guy.
Ryan Reynolds' silence in all this speaks volumes. Typically, he's quick-witted and eager to engage with fans. Suddenly, he went private on some brand pages, blocked critics on social media, and let his publicist handle the few statements that leaked out. For an actor who's made a career out of being irreverently transparent with his audience, this abrupt shift into no-comment territory raises eyebrows. It suggests he's trying to minimize damage and distance himself from a scandal that keeps escalating. Unfortunately for him, critics argue that if he was actively involved in pressuring agencies to drop Baldoni or in shaping the defamation, Narrative. It's too late for a graceful exit. As more evidence emerges, fans who once admired the lively Reynolds power couple are feeling betrayed. Some describe it as watching their favorite sitcom stars turn into the antagonists of a dark drama. Comment threads on Reddit and X, formerly Twitter, show that people are no longer buying the squeaky clean image. Certain accounts that were once fiercely loyal to Reynolds are now mocking him for playing the victim's husband while possibly pulling strings behind the scenes.
He's using it to assert control over Justin Baldoni, destroy his life. Essentially, it was destroying his family, his health, and everything else.
Meanwhile, Baldoni's supporters champion him as a new symbol of resilience against wrongful accusations. The shift is similar to how a chunk of the public initially laughed off Johnny Depp's claims, only to change their tune once unedited audio revealed details that shattered the original narrative. That's not to say Baldoni is automatically above all suspicion. In Hollywood, no one is entirely free of agendas. But the difference is that he has systematically released corroborating evidence, texts, voice messages, even a website dedicated to outlining his side of the story. Time and again, Lively's statements appear to falter under direct scrutiny. The most damaging example remains her claim that Baldoni intruded on her private space while she was breastfeeding, a supposed invasion of privacy. Then the text log surfaced, indicating she had invited him in. Whether that text was casual or formal, the fact that she gave him explicit permission pokes an enormous hole in her version of events. Compounding the drama are allegations that Lively's behavior on the film set extended beyond typical creative differences. She allegedly installed new staff, changed the film's trajectory, and overshadowed Baldoni's directorial role. If you're a producer, that might seem standard. But if you're filing lawsuits implying you had no power and felt threatened by the environment, it contradicts the narrative of someone who had enough authority to reshape the project at will.
Lively, talk about ruin your reputation, and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, they fucked up. Ryan's trying to get out of it now. He's trying to get out of the lawsuit. And they're like, you were a key part of this.
This is what you get, though.
No wonder Joe Rogan called it manipulative and disingenuous. The hypocrisy stings even more when you consider how Lively and Reynolds frequently brand themselves as supportive, philanthropic celebrities who champion progressive causes. One of the most contentious points is how the Me Too movement is being used here. Rogan and his guests slammed the idea that this was about genuine safety concerns. Fame might buy you a head start, but once the public catches up, no carefully managed image is guaranteed to hold. For anyone watching from the sidelines, the question remains, will this become the story of a director standing tall against corruption, or will new information change our perspective yet again? Only time will tell. And in Hollywood, time and truth have a habit of unveiling the unthinkable.